We're back with Green Mountain Mornings on KVT Talk, where Brattleboro listens. 23 minutes past the hour. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and welcome back to my guest, Randy Holhut from the Commons. How are you, Randy?
I'm doing great.
And I want to note for listeners that this segment of Green Mountain Mornings is being filmed by Brattleboro Community Television, and this segment will be up online later today at brattleboro.tv. Green Mountain Mornings tonight is sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Speaking of BCTV, Randy, you and I and Ann Braden and some other wonderful people were at BCTV on Wednesday for the Selectmen Forum, the Candidates Forum.
And it worked. It worked great. I mean, it was my first time trying to organize one of these things and try and find panelists to ask the questions and make sure there was an agreeable time for everyone to meet. And as it turned out, it was only 75% agreeable. But the cool thing was that I was able to use video to substitute for the real presence of Bill Fortune, one of the candidates for the one-year seat, so that he wasn't totally absent.
Yeah, that was different.
People still had a chance to see him and answer the questions that we asked, or some of them. And I thought it really worked well.
For those who are just tuning in and may not have caught the forum, what we did is Randy, Ann Braden, and I were panelists, and we quizzed the candidates for the Brattleboro Selectboard on different issues around town. 3 of them were able to show up in person. That was Shanta Lee Gander, Tim Wessel, and Brandy Starr. Due to work issues, William Fortune wasn't able to attend in person, and so BCTV was able to pre-tape some of his responses to the questions we were going to ask candidates. And it worked really well, and it was great to have his voice part of the conversation. So, Randy, what any takeaways from the forum? Any surprise answers? Any thoughtful answers that really have stuck with you? What's your takeaway right now?
Well, I think what Bill said in his closing statement, that you really can't go wrong with any of the candidates. We know Brandy's got it. Know what Brandy will be doing for the next 3 years of her life. On the select board, since she has no opposition, which is surprising. But it's an indication that a 3-year commitment to the select board is a really difficult thing to commit to, and which is why Mr. Wessel decided to just take the 1 year. I mean, you got a little baby in your life, and that suddenly changes everything.
Yeah, and infant kind of rules the roost.
Yeah, and certainly for Chantalee Gander and Bill Fortune, it's a chance to have a fun-sized version of the select board term. That 3-year term's too big, but the 1-year portion's just right to be a little appetizer to see if you can do it or not. And it certainly, no matter how the election shakes out, it's going to change the composition of the board drastically, with having a lot of artists on the board, having a more activist board. I mean, I think even Tim was kind of surprised where he was in a setting where he was kind of the adult, the kind of responsible one. Oh, dare we say conservative?
Fiscally, he is. I mean, he's very pragmatic with money when it comes to money.
And then so in that set, but in the normal setting, he's a slightly socially liberal and such. But he looks conservative when you plunk him next to Brandy and Shanta and Bill.
Yeah.
Everything's relative. Everything is relative, but it's going to be a different board and different dynamics. And I'm sure Kate O'Connor will continue as the chair, so she's going to have some interesting coalition building to do. And because really it is kind of it's going to be definitely a very progressive board. I mean, we know where David Scholes is at, and with the way he feels on issues, and with the new members, it just kind of reinforces it.
Yes, yes. One of the questions we had asked the board members was, we asked them some economic questions, and basically, how did we make Brattleboro a town that, at least economically, job-wise, shopping-wise, going out and dining-wise, the whole 9 yards, how did we make it a town that was accessible to everyone? And this was a question I asked, but you had come up with that I thought was so great about the two Brattleboros. And how do we, one that's a little more affluent, maybe a little more touristy, and one where people are working 3 or 4 jobs. What did you think of the candidates' response to those questions?
Well,
do you think they were on the mark?
We didn't get a direct answer, but it's hard to get a direct answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of wanted to get a sense of whether they were aware of the problem and would use that as a guide to what they were thinking about when things came up before the board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know there's a pretty significant swath of our population that doesn't go to downtown Brattleboro.
Right.
Sees no reason to. All they think of is panhandlers, overzealous parking enforcement officers, overpriced stuff that I don't want. I might as well go to Keene.
Right. Or Walmart, or Greenfield, or name your place.
But mostly Keene.
But mostly Keene.
Remember the K word when that came up in the select board?
Yes.
Conversations?
Yep. So
it's going to be pretty daunting for the board to deal with that, and especially with the new store coming over to Hinsdale Runnings and the old Walmart.
We are just out of time, but Randy and I will return after the break. We're back with Green Mountain Mornings on KVT Talk, where Brattleboro listens. It is 38 minutes past the hour. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and welcome back to the show, my guest, Deputy Editor of the Commons, Randy Holhut. Hello, Randy.
Good morning again, Olga.
Good morning again, Randy. And there are a couple of pieces in this week's Commons in the Voices section. I know often we talk about local news, but there were 2 pieces in the Voices section that really caught your attention this week, Randy, and one of them was from a local reverend. Could you tell us about that?
Well, that's the Susie Webster Tolino.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes pops into the Voices page for an issue now and again. But this one caught my eye because, of course, the graphic that goes with it, a big Trump sticker on the back of a pickup.
Okay.
Assorted other stickers of male machismo, and a big window sticker that says "White, Straight Armed, and Pissed," with a silhouette of an assault rifle saying "Brothers in Arms." So, Susie asked the question, why is this guy so angry?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I suppose he is ticked off at the world, but more than that, I suspect he's afraid. And fear does terrible things to people.
Oh, it does.
And this is the question of what we have now out there in our America circa 2018 is a certain group of men who feel very, very threatened. And, for various reasons that they don't quite understand.
Mm-hmm.
And, they think they're being made fun of by those liberals or those elitists.
Yes, elite, one of the other dog whistle words out there in our vocabulary right now.
Or they're being victimized by political correctness.
Yes.
But we do know that, speaking as someone who is white, male, and heterosexual, I don't want to get into any mansplaining here, another word that makes some squirmy.
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't have the keys to the kingdom anymore. You got to
Right.
share. The sandbox isn't all yours anymore, dude. So you got to share.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are uncomfortable with the idea that they don't automatically have the privilege that they thought was theirs without thinking about.
Well, as someone who does kind of fit some of the description on the trucks sticker, I mean, how do you feel about some of the changes? I mean, do you feel threatened?
I seem to remember a competing bumper sticker that a man of quality is not threatened by a woman seeking equality.
That's a good one.
And given my age, which is approaching 57, and given the age I grew up in, which was the dawn of third wave feminism, that it's benefited me as much as it's benefited women who lived through those years. The idea of equality, the idea of that there's no assigned role for a man or a woman, the idea that we should be working together as one, and kind of look at the roles and that we were supposed to play and re-examine them and change them if they just seem stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of, and you've seen that too, and you're a few years behind me, but you've lived through it too.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones who feel threatened by it because they can't handle the idea of sharing, and the others that say, yeah, why not? It makes sense to me.
Right. So how do you think we get through to the folks who are afraid of sharing?
I don't know because there's the people who are invested in cultivating people who are white, straight, and armed and angry at the world.
Mm-hmm.
They have a big investment in maintaining those that folks who have that anger, because those are the ones that vote for conservative candidates. But and even if and we've discussed this before in the past, that appeals to reason and fact don't seem to work because of emotion. Emotion overpowers fact so often, and you end up with people who are voting against their interests consistently. The people who actually believe Donald Trump when they said, "I'm not going to touch your Social Security or your Medicare,"
right?
Or I'm going to be, I'm not going to attack the rights of gays and lesbians. I'm not going to automatically. I'm going to bring jobs back to America. I'm going to, all these promises they made to appeal to those people who actually thought, well, why not? No, we knew that this wasn't going to happen, and we're seeing what we got. The dumpster fire that never extinguishes itself.
Yeah, and it just seems to keep getting bigger and bigger all the time.
So, trying to convince the group with the angry stickers in the backs of their trucks that perhaps they should have a slight attitude adjustment and realize that. No, we're not trying to get rid of you. We're not trying to send you off to a re-education camp to make you eat granola and bean sprouts.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be rough.
But yes, the world is different now,
Yeah.
and some people just don't deal with change well.
Yeah. Well, and I suspect, folks. You never know what's going through someone's head, but I who knows the stories they were fed too, that stories like, well, life could be worse, but you're not one of those, whatever those is. And so when you say equality to someone, that means they would have to be part of a wider group.
Well, the whole idea that it's a zero-sum game, that for you to have more of a shot, for you to have a shot at the American dream means that you have to take it away from me so you get it.
Yes. That, you know what? Perfect, Randy. Couldn't have said that better. Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's become a zero-sum game, winners, losers.
Yeah.
And for you to have more, for me to have more, you have to have less.
And it really doesn't have to work that way.
No, it doesn't, but the people who benefit from it sure love it.
Yeah.
Which kind of segues into the other piece on the Voices page from Allison Wendt talking about the proposed changes to the food stamp program.
Yeah.
Where instead of getting
get ready for your blood to boil.
Yeah, instead of getting the SNAP card, which works pretty well for the people who do use it, although the benefits are meager. But to go back to getting commodity food from the USDA, and those of us of a certain age remember those cans from the USDA of food,
Yes.
with the vegetables and the questionable meats, and of course the cheese lines. Remember the cheese lines back in the 80s?
Oh, yeah. And I remember the labels on everything just being like these generic white labels with black print.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes they might have been a beige label with black print, but yeah. Everything was just...
But the school lunch program used to get those too, as my mother did that for a few years, but so we know familiar with government food, and government cheese.
Yeah, government cheese
and government butter. Used to be one of the blocks of that, but this would be like instead of giving people the choice to or the opportunity to buy fruits and vegetables, that they'd be getting a box of Cheerios and a few canned vegetables and some shelf-stable milk and a few other things, and not really a lot of choice, and it costs more. There's less nutrition, and it helps stigmatize the people you're helping. Sounds like a Trump administration idea.
Yeah, it kind of does.
More, stigmatize the people that's supposed to help.
It checks the boxes.
Win.
Oh boy, yeah. Any thoughts on? I mean, besides the glee that I think some people get from sticking their thumb on the heads of others and pushing them down, like what's the government's rationale behind going backwards on a program that has actually made really great strides in reversing poverty and supporting people's nutrition?
Well, to the discussion we had earlier, the desire to punish, and in terms of anti-poverty programs, the food stamp program has been the most effective in terms of for economic benefit, and with a minuscule, almost microscopic amount of fraud compared to other things like military spending programs. And the money spent on food stamps goes to the people who need them, and you're not getting an awful lot of money. The max benefit for that's usually about $120 a month or so for a family of four, and you really have to budget hard to stretch that out. But
that's what a lot of people spend in a week.
It's just simple cruelty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can we, as people who either use the SNAP program or want to support our community members who use the SNAP program, what do we do? Where does this leave us?
Well, start by checking in with your Congress critters, where depending on which side of the river or border you're listening to this program on, and just keep maybe drop a line to the USDA too about this, but. This probably is going to be a non-starter anyways because of how much money it costs and how little effect it will have. And really, it's kind of a compromise anyways because what they really want to do is eliminate it altogether. Because why should people have food?
Yeah, well, if you weren't smart enough to be born rich,
Yeah,
then
or God didn't love you properly.
yeah, then why bother? Hmm. Yeah, that is such a strange quirk in our, I think, consciousness as a country is that idea around freedom, that it's a zero sum game for one person to have it, the other person can't. And if you're not perfect in some ways, this is so puritanical, then you must be punished.
Yes, the Puritans have a lot to answer for.
Oh, they do. But so do we, who seem to keep carrying on blindly their belief systems.
Yes.
Well, Randy, on that happy note,
Well, there's a happy note because
Oh.
I'm still beaming about the U.S. women's hockey team.
oh, tell us about that. See, I watched it, but I'm not a sportsy person, so
Well,
tell
that
us
was
why
a big
that's
win
special.
because it's the first time the U.S. women won a gold medal in 20 years. There's a Vermonter on there, Amanda Pelkey from Montpelier.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done a lot for women's sports in general because they went on strike last year.
Oh, that's
Team
right.
did, for to get benefits on par with the men.
Mm-hmm.
And not just they stuck together. Every level of hockey, from college and down to high school, when the U.S. Federation was looking for scabs to replace the women who were striking, every one of them said no, not doing it.
Yep.
And they hung together, and they got their what they deserve, and then did it on the ice. These women are genuine heroes, and they deserve every accolade we can throw their way.
I am so glad you talked about that, Randy, because like I said, not being a sports person, some of this has gone past me.
Well, you want a good story. That's a good story.
That is a good story.
And then, so have a good weekend, Olga.
I will too, Randy, and you too.